90% of members of a golf course said that the course and the experience that they receive in the course is the most important part for them. That will have a fundamental impact to the success of your business. So we now need to prepare for that future.
Ed Pettit, welcome to Changing the Business of Golf. Good to see you, Ed.
Thank you, Gary, and you.
Ed, in this series we're asking our guests to talk about 3 things that they would do to change the business of golf that would benefit golf course and club businesses. And we're going to hear a little bit about your thoughts on that in a moment. But first, just tell us a little bit about yourself and your own journey into the golf industry.
Really been playing golf since I was a boy, 7 or 8 years of age. My dad's family were all golfers. I grew up playing with them and decided somewhere along the way that I wanted to emulate Nick Faldo and be a professional golfer. So when I left school in the mid-90s, I would have entered the PGA first diploma program through the University of Birmingham. That was 1995. And then, continued on my studies, served my time as an assistant in clubs in Dublin, Hermitage Golf Club and Killiney Golf Club, and qualified as a PGA pro around the turn of the century, the millennium, and started out life working as a pro, teaching.
But ended up on the kind of the operations and the management side.
Yeah. So I think I sort of decided that really life as a traditional pro wasn't necessarily for me, having experienced it for a number of years. So I decided to return to education. I knew I wanted to be in the golf industry, but maybe more the business of golf. So with that in mind, I returned to education, studied sports management in University College Dublin, and then from there used that to sort of enter the operations side. Worked with a number of golf clubs around Ireland, opened PGA National around 2004, and then in 2006 I joined Carr Golf.
And you've been with Carr Golf for nearly 2 decades now. Just tell us about the Carr family and their contribution to the golf business in Ireland and overseas as well.
Yeah, I mean, the Carr family have been synonymous with golf in Ireland since the 50s. JB, or Joe Carr, as he's known, was multiple British amateur champion. He was Walker Cup player and playing captain. He's involved in 11 Walker Cups over the years. He was the first Irish-born captain of the RNA in 1991, inducted into the Golf Hall of Fame in 2007. So as an individual within the golfing industry, he was renowned, and therefore renowned in Ireland. Was the first Irishman to play in the Masters at Augusta on the invitation of Bobby Jones, became a member, etc. And so all his family were steeped in that sort of golfing history. Roddy Carr would have played Walker Cup as well. His brother John was a sub on the same Walker Cup team. They would have been the first siblings to play on the same Walker Cup team. Roddy went on to the European Tour and then became synonymous with IMG, Amen Corner, which was Sevy's company. And Carr Golf was really formed out of the family's background in golf. Obviously Joe had a network of contacts around the world, and that was really put to use in terms of creating the travel company, which was really the brainchild of Marty, who remains the principal today, and his brother John. And they set up a travel company back in 1989. So we're celebrating, as an organisation, we're celebrating our 35th year. The travel company was the founding of it, but then they got into other parts of the golf business, particularly that public-private partnership development of golf in Ireland, something that had been in the UK but not necessarily was a big thing in Ireland until the mid-90s, so they were part of that. And that sort of management and commercial side has evolved over the years while the travel company has continued to grow.
And one of the things we're going to be talking about are golf courses and how golf courses can change for the better, how they can optimise their business. And that's a big part of what Carr Golf does today.
Yeah. I mean, we're involved in operating or owning 4 assets ourselves through our sort of commercial arm. So we are at the coalface in that sense, but we're also involved in another 19 clubs on the island of Ireland maintain their golf course, and how that the maintenance of their course plays such a fundamental part of their overall business. So we're very invested, obviously, in golf in Ireland, and part of our growth plan at the moment is to take what we do and that maintenance expertise that we have developed in Ireland over the last 10 years, look to offer that service in the UK. I mean, from a cultural language perspective, it's an obvious place for us to begin, our export journey, and something that we are certainly focused on growing over the coming years.
The first change you proposed, Ed, is prioritising your golf course. Now, what do you mean by that? Because in some ways it sounds obvious, because the golf course is the primary asset, but is it something that's sometimes overlooked by a business?
I think so, and I think, in recent years there's been a focus on, investing in other component parts to the business, or improving service around it, and all of these additions in order to grow the business and protect the business. And we are involved in investing in driving ranges and the gamification and the entertainment, and there's undoubtedly a shift, towards off-course golf as well as on-course golf. But we almost see that as being like a new revenue stream. It's appealing to a different market, and it may create an opportunity for pathway to new members or new visitors to our golf courses. But for our core customer, or for the core customer actually going to the golf club and who's a member of the golf club, the golf course is the most important part of the experience for them. There was a survey done last year, and 90% of members of a golf course said that the course and the experience that they receive in the course is the most important part for them. And at the same time, only 22% of them said that they were satisfied with conditioning year round.
Only 22%,
Only
22% was satisfied?
Yeah. And so I'm a firm believer that there is a direct correlation between the conditioning of the golf course and revenue. I think if you can condition your course to be the best of your competitive set, and if it's improving, revenue across all categories will increase. Green fees, membership, the spin-off then into F&B and retail, etc. I think the opposite is equally true, that if other courses within your competitive set are seen as being better than you, or your conditioning is declining, I think revenue will follow that trend. So prioritizing the golf course, investing in your greenkeeping team, investing in training, investing in inputs, technical knowledge, machinery, leveling tees is an important part of the membership experience. That they've said that it's one of the top 3 priorities, along with the visual aesthetics and smooth running greens. So I think investing in those and making sure that you can be as good as you can be and better than your competitors in those areas, that will have a fundamental impact to the success of your business.
I wonder what you see on the ground when you go to different golf courses, when you're perhaps called in and you start looking at a golf course business. What is the relationship like between the course manager, the superintendent, and perhaps the club manager, but actually the way the course is represented in the business itself? We've talked about the conditions there, but how is the course represented in the business, the business numbers, if you like?
Yeah, it can be challenging. I mean, the course is obviously, a lot of the time the course manager and his team are the experts, and they're sort of left to their own devices to a degree. They maybe don't get sufficient support from club managers or boards or committees. There's an element of not really understanding and not really knowing, and so then it's really left to the course manager to try and argue for sufficient budgets, or explain why machinery really needs to be replaced, or why modernization of machinery is important, and sometimes that's a difficult battle to win when there's so many other competing interests. We see it sometimes whereby you can see there's been investment in clubhouses, you can see there's investment in other areas, and maybe that is lacking on the golf course. And so I think the more boards and club managers and owners understand the need to prioritize the golf course, there is, as I said, competing interest. There can be distractions around other parts of the experience, but once everybody sort of remembers that the reason our core customer is there is the golf course, and we need to get that as good as it can be, I think that will ultimately provide a competitive advantage.
It's a fairly compelling statistic, isn't it? Only 22% of customers are satisfied with the year-round conditioning of their green. I mean, if you were a retail chain, or you were a restaurant chain or a hotel chain, and those types of businesses are very good at surveying their customers as well, I mean, you'd be pretty worried for your business if you were showing that sort of number, surely.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's funny you mentioned those types of businesses. We've encountered some resorts recently, and through interviews and discussions, whereby again there's a misunderstanding within even, say, the hotel and the hospitality industry, that if you've got a low occupancy, you can reduce down the amount of housekeeping staff that you may need on duty in order to turn over those beds. And they almost think that we can take a similar approach to golf courses, that if there's low rounds being played, well, maybe we don't need as many greenkeepers, we can reduce down the cost. But ultimately grass will grow and still needs to be maintained, still needs to be mown. The agronomic program still needs execution, irrespective of whether there's 200 rounds in a day or 40 rounds in a day. So some of those challenges exist, whereby if you just apply the principles of other industries to a golf courses, it's not quite that simple. And you do need to invest to produce consistent standards, and certainly the data says that there's an issue here. And maybe the approach needs to change as well. It can't be all about cost, and that in the example I've cited, that we need to continuously invest in prioritizing the golf course and the impact that can have then on the core business, but the other sort of divisions linked to it.
The second change you proposed is to use data to inform your decision making at a golf course or a club. Just explain the importance of that.
I think first of all, there's the customer side. So, surveying customers, understanding sentiment and net promoter scores, etc. You can also then have regular post-visitor feedback using systems like Players First, etc. that integrates into tee sheets, etc. But I think really it's around using data to inform decision making. That strategic decisions are based on actual data rather than gut or instinct or somebody's opinion. On the golf courses that we're involved in, we do undertake a significant amount of testing and measuring of the performance of the golf course. And we look at that over all aspects of the golf course setup and presentation. That would extend to accessories and furnitures and signage and tee markers, etc. Greens performance, tees, collars, approaches, fairways, the whole gambit. And by undertaking a series of subjective and objective measures, we can apply a KPI score to each individual area, but also then the overall. While each assessment is a snapshot in time, you build up a picture, over time, over a year, over 2 years, over 3 years, and we can then see, well, is the golf course continuing to improve? Are there areas that there's continued underperformance, and we can then use that data to cross-reference the customer data, and it allows us to better analyze, or allows our clients to better analyze and interpret that data, and basically inform better decisions around where capital investment needs to be prioritized, where works on the golf course need to be addressed, etc. So having that data and being able to understand how the course is performing, and also then being able to benchmark against other golf courses that are undertaking similar types of testing.
And it's interesting you talk about KPIs there, key performance indicators, because again, you see that in other businesses, and perhaps a golf club and golf course businesses, you might know your numbers around revenues, numbers of green fees, number of visitors, etc. But how much do you know about your golf course? I mean, how many golf course businesses really know about their golf course in terms of the sorts of KPIs you're talking about?
Yeah, I would say they're in the minority. There's definitely a lot of really strong course managers who are investing in testing equipment, pogos, and measuring speed, and doing soil testing on an annual basis and looking at that. So there undoubtedly there are course managers doing that, and they are certainly at the forefront of the industry. But many golf courses don't. I think some see it as being just the high-end golf courses that this is relevant to. But it's not. It's every golf course. And why can't a supposedly middle of the road golf course undertake this testing and understand how their course is performing? Are they improving? What do they need to do to improve? And then how does that benchmark them against the competitive set? And I think in order to be able to make better decisions and understand the prioritization of the golf course, bringing those key performance indicators into the golf course performance as much as the financial performance of the business is critical and will underpin how a golf course can move forward and how a golf club can move forward.
And presumably this makes it, for the superintendent or the course manager, they can better argue their position and their need for investment, and perhaps from a board or management perspective, they can better understand what they're looking at.
Absolutely.
As well.
It allows them to communicate in a much more succinct way and a much more compelling way to the ultimate decision makers.
And what would you say to maybe the middle of the road course who thinks exactly what you've said, that this is only for the top courses to take this sort of approach? Is it practical and feasible for that type of golf club, that type of business to implement the sorts of KPIs you're talking about?
I think so. There's a reason the top golf courses do it, and maybe there might be a perception of we don't have the resources to either undertake that testing or to execute the change. But I think it's without data and without understanding how the course is performing in the same way that you want to understand how your business is performing. Without understanding that, it's hard to make progress and hard to position yourself to grow your business.
Ed, your third point, your third change to the business of golf is to prepare for the future.
Doomsday.
What are the changes that you see coming down the line for golf club businesses?
Specifically around the maintenance of the golf courses, I think we are looking at a future whereby we will have reducing inputs. Some of that will be driven by regulatory changes. We see already, the amount of fungicides and different plant protection products more and more coming off the market. The volume of active ingredients is significantly reduced. The efficacy of these products is reduced. So some of it will be regulatory change, and I think then there will also be depleting resources. Sand, water, etc. Are all going to impact how we manage our golf courses into the future. I think the proposed European Union Sustainable Use Regulation that was ultimately defeated within the Commission, I think that gave us an insight into what the future could look like. And really, I would say that in Ireland and the UK, we're not really prepared for it, and we're not set up for it. There are courses or countries in Europe that are way further down the road than we are around pesticide usage and controls. And if you look at Denmark, Sweden, the Netherlands, France, there are significant restrictions on the use of plant protection products in those countries as part of their national climate action plans. I think it's inevitable that we are going to get to those points, and shock and awe is not going to work. We can't wait until such time as these things are being enforced on us. We now need to prepare for that future. We talked about data. I think measuring everything that goes onto the golf course, all inputs from fertilizers to fuel to sand to water, etc. We need to measure that in the first instance, and then I think we need to actively look at reducing those on a year-on-year basis. I think, particularly on greens, root zone health is going to be critical. So looking at soil composition and soil health, getting that right, the sward composition, making sure that we've the right grasses in the key playing areas is going to be critical. And while it may be marginal gains at the moment year on year, I think over the course of time, those marginal gains will sum up to be quite a significant change, and it'll prepare golf courses for what inevitably is going to come in the 2030s.
And I guess from a golf club, golf course business perspective, anyone listening to that thinking, my goodness, how kind of what do we do? Because those are some big changes coming down the line. But what you're suggesting there are actually practical here and now things that can be done that are a part of preparing for the future.
Absolutely, and need to be done in reality. And we can also embrace technology to help with that. So, AI is becoming an ever increasing part of what course managers and greenkeepers will use, whether that be disease modelling, soil mapping, weather, growth potential models linked to weather data, etc., to determine what nutrients we use. All of those tools are available. Obviously, Syngenta have their digital platform and their Greencast tools that provide resources to course managers and greenkeepers to help understand how they can better manage their golf course and manage those changes. So, yeah, I mean, it's really a case of if a golf course does not take action now to begin the journey, I think it'll be too late. When the time comes that it's enforced, the change is going to be significant, and it's a real risk to the business. If they can't adapt to those changes because they haven't been preparing in the years up till now, I think that will be a significant risk to their business in terms of membership numbers, satisfaction, the ability to drive green fee. All of those things is going to be a problem. So, take action now. Lay the groundwork now for what is inevitably going to come in the future.
And this goes back to your first point in terms of prioritising the golf course and indeed the KPIs as well that you mentioned in your second point, which is it's all about the customer experience and getting the conditions and the experience as good as you can for the customer, because that is the ultimate, that's the business, that's what you're selling yourself
Absolutely.
on.
That's CX, that customer experience is what people are buying. When they pay their membership fee, there was a time where maybe there was a traditional attachment to a club and your parents were there, you grew up there, it was close to home, and that's you paid your membership fee regardless. That's not really how the industry works anymore. It's a competitive business, it's a competitive industry, and so it's really about the customer experience. And so everything we've talked about today, prioritizing your golf course, again, is around making sure that the customer experience is as good as it can be. How do you do that? You use data and measure and monitor performance to ensure that you're continuously delivering on that experience. And then the future, again, you want to protect your ability to provide that experience, but to do so, I think you've got to lay the foundations now, because if you wait, that experience is going to deteriorate significantly when changes are enforced.
We talk about sustainability, but this is about sustainability of standards.
Yes, absolutely. Sustainability has many forms, but I think in order to have financial sustainability in the business, there needs to be a sustainability in standards at a time when resources are depleting. And so it is the ability to do that for a business to adapt and actually maintain standards through the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years that will ultimately create that business sustainability.
Ed Pettit, thank you very much for sharing your changes to the business of golf.
Thank you, Gary.